Hello, good morning. Today we'll be talking about a news piece that has been floating around in the news lately, and it's related with some of the new madness coming out of the USA. Now, uh, I will be showing you a couple of images from the Irish Times because I think it would be easier for English speakers to understand the subject I'm talking about. Okay, this is just a mental health, a mental aid or a visual aid in the case of whoever is watching this video, because you can find the same news more or less in a lot of national and local and national and international news outlets. Okay, at least here in Europe. In the USA, I have no idea. A country that has whatever channels they have, who knows? But let's carry on. Okay. Uh, it has to do with two fundamental aspects. It has to do with the food standards in health and safety standards of Europe when it comes to food, and it also comes with our ties with China. Okay. I will start the video by telling you what was the answer of Europe, and it was, "Who are you? And what makes you think you can dictate us to do whatever you want?" This in a very short answer. This is what the EU member states said. We have ties with China, economical, political. Also, we trade with China, we sell to China, we buy from China. China invests in Europe, Europe invests in China, and that is how it's going to continue. Because, like the Chinese said, they have been there for thousands of years, and so have we. Okay, Portugal, or at least the ethnic state, or ethnic, let's call it, the cultural space that will become Portugal, has been around here since around 800 years before Christ was born. So we have been a country since the year 1143. So we don't give a crap about whatever some savage talks about, thinking that his 2 centuries or whatever country is or matters. We don't care. This is the first point you should know. Okay. Secondly, the way the demands are made, there isn't. Look, let's continue. Okay, I prepared the site here. First of all, as always, this video is not monetized. Okay, and what I'm going to show you, it's not my property. It's a news that is available and that I read, okay? And I would advise you to please go check out the Irish Times. Go give them some views. Perhaps subscribe. Why not? I'm also subscribed to a couple of news outlets. Sometimes it's so little, 50 cents or €1 or whatever, and you are helping reporters doing their job. So if you can, subscribe to them. If you can't, well, spread the word around and show it. Okay, show it to other people that might be able to contribute more. Okay, let's start. Now, let's start here. EU dismisses US demands on food standards and ties to China. EU standards on food, health and safety will never be a part of negotiation with the US or anyone else, the European Commission says. Okay. Now, as you can see, here is well, I don't know how to call it, the name of the gentleman, or of the person, sorry. Gentleman is a bit of a hard word. I only call a gentleman to a person that acts and behaves as a gentleman. Okay, so is a person, a human being. I I think is the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. You know, Maros Sesovic to discuss trade and blah 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 and blah blah blah. The photograph was by Jacqueline Martin, AP. Uh, the authors of this piece are Pat Leahy and Jack Powell. Wednesday, April 16. Okay, but I had heard about this. Okay, now basically what they are saying here is that the European Union will not agree to these changes that Mr. Trump wants. Okay, so we won't be taking their chlorinated chicken, their hormone beef, and their crap candies that make you puke. But what will happen? I can tell you what will happen. Europe will say, "Oh, okay, you can sell us more gas, or you can sell us more oil, or whatever," and that will be it. And Europe still needs some gas and still needs some oil. We're doing the green transition, while the US is stepping back. And let me just focus on me again. Sorry, still getting the hand of this new setup I have here. But what will happen basically is that Europe will stall this energy purchase to the US long enough to continue to develop our green energy. Uh, as an example, for example, I believe last year Portugal reached almost 70% of green energy flow. So 70% of our energy was green. And this is something that is going to grow because it grows every day. Uh, it's been going on for years. It's becoming ingrained in society. It's becoming ingrained in the energy policies of society and of successive governments. As an example, if you go to any rural area here, and now a lot of urban areas too, you will see that, for example, traffic lights are fed by solar panels. Why? Because we have a lot of sun. Portugal, even during winter, has many hours of sun, so we might as well take advantage of it. Every new houses, they have to be prepared to be energetically efficient. They need to have solar panels, a series of other infrastructures that are there. Do you understand this? So you enter your any new house must be prepared for this. Must be prepared to be fed. Let's call it this way. It's the easiest way to say it. To be fed and to be energized using alternative energy sources. And I'm 50. Okay, and ever since I was around I don't know, in my 20s, perhaps in my early 20s, already during that period, farmers had windmills to feed generators. So this is not something that has been going on for a couple of years, that is a fashion or whatever. No, this is something that has been going on for years, decades now. Okay? So, and Portugal is not even one of the most advanced countries in that aspect. There are countries in Europe that are much further than us. But like everything in Europe, we just keep catching up with each other. For example, in terms of informatization of systems, Portugal is more advanced than a lot of countries in Europe. Okay, we have the systems in courts, systems in the tax system, in government, whatever, completely informatized. Okay, not perfectly informatized, but everything pretty much. With my ID card, I can, even without my ID card, I can have a virtual ID card in my cell phone. I can have a key to access also public services. If you want, you can, of course, like in other countries in Europe and in the world, you can pay with your cell phone, whatever, with apps. No, it's we have a pretty wide range of such systems. So, and this is something with green energy that is going to progress Now that it has risen, and that the infrastructure is already here, it's something that will not stop. It's like burying, for example, energy cables and utilities and whatever, that started also a couple of years ago. I don't know, a decade perhaps. Let me see, we're in 2025, I would say around 2008, 2009, 2010, around that period. And right now, it's the norm. Why? Because these green policies are much better for the environment, they are much better for us, and they are becoming cheaper. Look, imagine this. A lot of homes right now, I'm not talking about apartments, for example. There are some apartment blocks that are already in that. But a lot of private homes, they have, for example, solar panels to heat water, solar panels to produce energy that goes back into the network. And when a person becomes a producer of energy, they will receive credit in energy consumption or even pay. So if you give more energy to the network than you receive, you will have always that credit on the energy you spend. So it's a system that works. Windmills also work. Wind farms. We have wind farms, of course. We also have a lot of wind, hydro energy. We are also experimenting in that. And what I see in the next decades is this slowly progressing. Okay, because we are now right now we also have other things being built like factory batteries, pardon me, like factories or factories to produce manufacturers to produce batteries. Some of them are with Chinese capital. They are also investing, and you have to understand this difference between us and for example the United States and even the United Kingdom. Okay, around here an investor arrives. Most of the times, they get a Portuguese partner and they start to work, or they create a company, a subsidiary of their company. But they are working here according to our laws. They have to pay taxes here, they have to employ people here. So when they produce and they have a profit, they cannot they cannot siphon it all out of the country. They cannot siphon the wealth out of Europe that they produce here. They have to pay taxes over it, and it's a win-win situation because uh, people have this idea of having the company must always have the headquarters in the country, and that is not absolutely correct. Of course, it's better to have it that way. But if you have it the other way, but you still control it and you still make that the wealth that is produced to stay in the country and to be reinvested in the country, if the company is paying salaries, if the company is, for example, bringing in foreign currency, what is to lose? And what I see in the US right now is the same thing that I saw in the UK with Brexit. It's a notion of what sovereignty is that is a bit alien to me because sovereignty is the capability of controlling, let's call it this way, what happens in your country. Sovereignty is not, for example, not negotiating with your neighbors. This is an example, okay? Sovereignty is not imposing tariffs in being a bad business partner to your neighbor. Sovereignty is also imposing your rules, meaning your law, on whoever is inside of your country, be it immigrants, be it companies that arrive here and want to begin to do business here, whatever. And people have to start to understand things this way, and they also have to start to understand that change is inevitable, you know. But let's continue on because we are drifting a bit away from this news. Now, let's go back to the Irish Times, okay? Mm. As you see, this suggests that agreement between the EU and US on trade following the imposition of tariffs by Donald Trump will be hard of reach, but we already knew that. And the European Commission has publicly repeated that the union's high food standards are not on the table in any negotiations of the US. Let's see. It has a commission. This is a commission spokesman. EU standards, particularly as they related to food, health, and safety, are sacrosanct. Sacrosanct means that they are not subjected to be changed. That is not a part of the negotiation, and it will never be, not with the US or anyone else. This is an important detail that any American viewers should understand. This has nothing to do with the fact of being the US trying to impose something. This is for everybody. We do it with every other country. We decide what we eat, we decide how companies that act here produce everything. We have a lot of American companies producing in Europe. Coca-Cola, Pepsi Cola, I don't know, the Reese's Pieces, KFC, McDonald's, whatever. They are all here, and they are all producing and applying work laws in the terms that we determine, because this is our countries. You know, the European Union is not a effing state. The European Union is an association of member states. Okay, let's continue. Also, the EU regulations on tech and social media companies, which US multinationals have criticized as overbearing, were also not up to negotiation. This means that people like Mr. Musk from X, Facebook, Amazon, whatever, they will also not be able to do whatever they want. They will have to do what we tell them, and if they don't do it, they will be banned and they will be fined. Okay, as you can see here, this I also heard this in RTP1 here in Portugal. The ambassadors from the EU's 27 states were briefed on the latest round of talks between the European Trade Commissioner Mario Sefcovic, which will eat this guy for lunch, Howard Lutnick, that took place on Washington. But Maros will eat this guy for lunch. I'm just saying this. And you can read this afterwards with more detail, but basically what this is that we don't care about. If you want to sell here, you can sell, but you will sell according to our rules. And we also have, and let me just pass through, and you have to also to understand that when you call the European Union a protectionist racket, you are absolutely right. We are protecting our own interests, but we are willing to negotiate. No, I'll give you this example. I just went to the butcher right now, this afternoon. I went to buy some meat for traditional Easter dishes here. Okay, and I had around 90% or more of Portuguese source, the Portuguese meat. Okay, and then I also had in the other, let's call it 10%. I was not counting. Okay, I also had an assortment of different products. You know, I had meat from New Zealand. Okay, for example, I there was also something from Morocco, I believe, and some other country that I cannot recall right now. Maybe Australia or South Africa, but whatever. But those products were here. Why? Because they are produced and they have the composition that the EU allows. So nothing stops US companies from doing what they are doing right now. I gave you the example of the soft drinks of Pepsi and Coca-Cola. They are produced here. They have bottling plants here in Portugal and in Spain. You know, more so in Spain because of course Spain is a larger country. Okay, it's a larger kingdom. Portugal is smaller. So, but we still, for example, there's a lot of interaction between the two countries. So you might have, for example, the Portuguese plants producing more to deliver to Spain in order to fill out any quotas that they cannot fill up, sorry, and vice versa. Of course, if Spain produces more, naturally, there was if there it's more common for Spain to come in. For example, they are missing whatever amount of product here and put it here. But you will find this, and it's very normal. And in France and Germany, it's the same, you know. So all of this begins with a lie because it's not true that there is this enormous deficit. No, you are producing your products here in Europe. And what these tariffs have been making is situations like the one that I spoke about in another video. That, for example, American products, even those produced here, like that example that I gave you, the Reese's Pieces chocolate candies or whatever, that they taste like European chocolate candies. Okay, I know. I like peanut butter and I like chocolate, and I've tasted them before, but they are a bit sweet to me, so I don't like it very much. But they are not bad, okay? And also Pepsi and Coca-Cola and the McDonald's where you can go if you want to, the KFC or whatever. But all of those companies have been losing money. Why? Because people are boycotting them, and they will continue to do so. Those companies in Europe will have to reduce their production here because they will not disappear. I'm not saying that. I don't see that happening in the foreseen future. But what is happening is right now is that Europe is trying to find options and alternatives to every American product. For example, European and NATO European people responsible and whatever, they are being told, they are receiving memos to not use phones with American technology, with American apps, and to use other type of phones. Why? Because they are compromised. Because you look, a country that arrests tourists and goes to their phones on the border, what can I tell you? When a country bans the entry of people because they don't like their president, well, this is not a democratic state. You can enter in Portugal if you don't like our president. As long as you don't offend him when you are here, no one will care. You don't like it? Well, sometimes I don't like him either. And I certainly don't like your president because of the way that he behaves. I'm not saying if he's a bad or good person. I really don't care. I just think look. My simple opinion is that he should retire and go play golf and let some other people take over the business, as he calls them, because for him governing is a business, and he's not governing; he's ruling. Okay, but carry on. But what we are reading here is that there will be no agreement on this. Because imagine this, we have a set of standards for our food, the food that we eat, that we give our children, that the food with which we produce products here that we export to other parts of the world. You will find, for example, I will give you this example. You will find Portuguese olive oil, Portuguese wine, Portuguese cold meats, Portuguese canned fish and canned goods all over the world. Some countries even call sardines in tomato sauce Portuguese sardines. That is one of the products that we produce the most. Okay? And they are produced here. Some of them are even produced by other, for example, for Spanish companies from Galicia. They have a couple of, or they also produce some of their products here because there is this interaction. And when it comes to Spain, between Portugal and the Ayuntamiento province of Galicia, because Spain, you have to remember, Spain is also not a united, no borders country. No, Spain is composed by many states or provinces or whatever you want to call them. You have Catalonia, you have the Basque country, you have Galicia, for example. Okay, so but and for example, you have a lot of more interaction with Galicia that are rather similar to us and that we speak practically the same language and there are family connections and whatever. But if you go down south, you will find it also. You will find between the provinces of Alentejo in Portugal and Andalusia, you will find connections between people. You go further south and you go to the Algarve, and you also find, and vice versa, because this is natural. It happened. No, my grandfather, my grandfather worked in the harbor of Cadiz, and I think he left one or two kids back then. So look, it's normal. But let's continue. But you have to understand is this: we cannot, even from a legal point of view, because this is a legal point of view, we cannot accept underpair or dangerous products. And you want to know what is one of the reasons, for example, that we do not take in chlorinated poultry. You want to know? Because when they chlorinate the meat, it's a way of hiding the poor hygiene conditions in which it's produced and the toxins and whatever. And afterwards, the process of chlorinating also leaves toxins in the meat. It's simple as that. Hormone beef, the same thing. You give, for example, there are some hormones that are given to cattle here, but they are given in specific amounts and they are given to create more healthier animals. So it's no the cattle it gets antibiotics, it gets treated so that it won't have the diseases that happen. Animals get sick just like us. Okay, and that is the difference of the perspective. The difference of the perspective is this, and I have heard a lot of American people say this. Look, in the US, you can use whatever chemicals you want in your food as long as no one proves that they are dangerous. I will repeat this. In the US, you can use whatever you want to produce your meat as long as no one proves that that product that you use on your meat production or whatever food production is not dangerous. Now, in Europe, you can only use a chemical on your food if it is proven to be safe. People are not guinea pigs. You know, people are not. guinea pigs. You do not endanger your population to produce food at lower costs. If you have a chemical, you prove that it has absolutely, or I don't know, supportive, adequate. It's adequate is the word that is best describes what I'm trying to say. That is adequate, and that does not harm a person, but that will increase the meat production, for example, or the growth, or whatever, or bigger oranges or bigger tomatoes, whatever, and it doesn't hurt people. Then you prove that, and you can use it. Do you understand the difference? We test first and use after. You use, pray, and then if there is something wrong, you will test it. Why? You are going to test you are going to test after the harm is done. And this is a law, a very seminal difference between positions. And this is legally ingrained, but not just only in the EU, in most European countries. In most European, it even before the EU made this a standard, you have to understand this did not came from the air. This came from all countries already doing this. All countries were already doing this. No, they have this rule. First, you prove this is not harmful, and then you can use it. That is why, for example, Skittles are produced in a different way here in Portugal or in Europe. You have Skittles here if you like them. Okay, that is why Fanta here is actually lighter because instead of using the chemicals that you put in your Fanta in the US, here we use different different things in our food. In the case of Fanta, they use orange juice. Go figure. An orange flavor juice or soda using orange to flavor it, to color it. And they also use other chemicals. But you have to understand this. This is very important. And this is why we are not going to make deals this way. The US could produce according to EU rules and export it here. American farmers, they could do that if they wanted to. Because the tariffs and whatever Mr. Trump is talking about, they really don't exist. Those A-generated calculations that he wrote in a cardboard, they are not real. And VAT, our VAT, it's not just for American products. It's for every product that is imported. And it's even for every product that we produce here. It's a tax we put on certain products. There are certain products that have a lower VAT. Okay, for example, some food products, I don't know, bread, milk, basic staples, they have a lower tax, and some of them don't even have any tax at all. And others, like sweets and things you can go without, or things that you buy either for fun or even for work, like for example, I don't know, computers and all of those things, they have a higher VAT, and that's normal. Okay, and he's confusing a tariff that is a tax put on products that you import with the fiscal policy of the country itself. And even in Europe, even with the harmonization of fiscal rules all over the EU countries, Some countries have lower taxes on certain products than others. We also have a sugar and salt tax, and it has um, a lower contents or from 0 to a certain point. And according to the level of salt or sugar, countries apply different taxes. For example, Portugal has a very high tax on sugar and salt. Reason why, for example, Coca-Cola is heavily taxed. But it's not taxed because it's American. It's because, as I told you, remember what I told you, we don't import Coca-Cola cans from the US. We produce them here, either in Portugal or in Spain. Okay? But it's produced here. But Nestle also does the same. Nestle produces chocolates or whatever in Spain, and it also produces here in Portugal. Like I said in the other video about that story of the Chinese TikTokers that China was producing this and producing that. Some luxury items are partially assembled or produced in Portugal or sourced with materials here. But it's the brand that is producing it. And I will tell you something that perhaps will shock you. But if they were producing those brands in China, they would not be fooling anyone. If they were doing it, but they are not doing it. But if they were doing it, they would be not lying to anyone because it would be the brand that installs itself in a country and produces their products there. Some Portuguese companies have branches in other places in Europe. Supermarkets have branches. Lidl, for example, Lidl is German and Aldi, and they have branches all over Europe, all over the EU, UK, US. But you have to understand they have their own house products, okay, that they sell everywhere, and then they have the products that are produced according to the rules of that country. This is very hard for me to explain, but I hope that even with my not so good English that you understood what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that you cannot confuse taxes with tariffs. A bloody tariff is not a source of income. When you put tariffs on products that you import, you are only taxing yourself. You're taxing your consumers because the consumer, if someone decides I'll put 20% of taxes on carrots that you were importing, do you think, for example, I said carrots, but let's talk about exotic fruits. Your climate, you cannot produce them. I'll give you again my country, but I will tell you again. For example, tea and bananas and pineapples and whatever. In continental Portugal, you can only produce them in greenhouses. And in certain areas of the country, you can have a very deficient, very miserable production of those fruits, exotic fruits. For example, in the Algarve, that has a more milder climate with not so harsh winters. But you go, for example, to the Azores, that are temperate Atlantic islands, and you can produce tea, you produce sugarcane, you produce bananas, you produce pineapples, and in the Madeira Island, it's even easier. You know, Madeira Island produces a very famous pineapple That is one of the traditions here during New Year's is to buy yourself a Madeira Island pineapple. Do you want and those products like coffee? We import a lot of coffee and we produce it here. We have famous coffee brands here that are sold all over Europe. They are even sold in your country, perhaps under their brand name or in subsidiaries with different names. But we don't produce the bloody coffee. Around here, the only thing that we can plant is tobacco. And even so, not so much. We import the raw coffee, mainly from former countries of Portuguese Africa and Brazil, and then we do the blending here. And we produce different blends, which if you don't know, there are two main blends of coffee, Colombia and Arabica. This is so simple. I cannot understand how someone can tell we are filling the coffers with tariffs when they should say we are filling the coffers with the taxes that we are overcharging our own country people. And then you have TikTokers buying luxury items from China and thinking they are buying the real thing. I honestly cannot understand this sometimes. Okay, and as always, I went off the track. But right now, let's finish this piece on the Irish Times. Okay, they also speak here about the Irish position when Tanist Simon Harris meeting with Lutnick said the U.S. wanted the EU to respect restrictions on American agricultural produce and cut close trading ties with China if it wanted to secure. If it wanted to secure. This is blackmail, and it won't happen. As you can see, they dismiss the idea of allowing the US beef and chicken into the EU. Other adjustments, meaning let's negotiate other stuffs. No. And here it is. The EU's powerful farming lobby will not allow any changes that would allow this crap. So after after I told you about the health concerns, we also have to understand the economical concerns. Portugal produces a lot of beef. France produces a lot of beef. We want to sell it. We don't want this crap. We don't need it. And this is the part that I think is very important. And I will even read this paragraph. Brussels also played down the prospect of the EU cutting ties with China in order to pave the way for a trade deal with the US. EU officials quote the bloc's intention to de-risk its relations with China, a long-time objective of the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, but says the US requirement of decoupling is not viable. What this all means is we are going to continue to trade with China. We need to be careful, as always, but we don't need to be bad trading partners. Why would you antagonize other countries? Why would you antagonize China? Why would you antagonize them? That's ridiculous. That is not the way you do business, and that is not the way, certainly, that you do politics. And then this is the crap of the pharmaceutical imports, but they will shut up about it because if they don't do so, no, if they don't do so, the US is going to run out of medicine because they can't produce them. Let me just focus back on me again. Uh, because when it comes to pharmaceutical products, the US also does not have even the needed production of raw materials to produce certain compounds. And even if they started right now producing it and investing in it, it would take decades, not years, decades, to produce compounds, to produce insulin, to produce antibiotics. I mean, simple things like syringes, like masks, like medical products that the US imports in mass from China and from Europe. But from Europe, I think it's more medicine and medical machinery. But you have to understand that this type of blackmail it does not work. It simply does not work. It's extremely bad business, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This to tell you the truth, I told a friend this today talk when we were talking about. He's not Portuguese. We speak online, and he said something that I agree. I'm disgusted with this, and I am disgusted. I'm, I am, I am disgusted with the behavior of the USA and this endless narrative of the mental lunacies of people. Arresting tourists, arresting a man that the court said you could not deport him and deport him. Look, I know the US has not signed a lot of the international agreements when it comes to justice, when it comes to this question of deporting people or whatever. The US did not sign a lot of those agreements, but yet they were and are very quick in calling out others for not complying with it. Funny, no? Do what I want, don't do what I do. That won't work. That doesn't work anymore. Look, the lesson that we have to take out of this is this. It's very simple. Other countries, other blocks of countries, if you want something from them, you have to negotiate. And there are things that the EU can negotiate with the US, but there are other things we cannot. Imagine this. You have high standards in food. You have powerful lobbies inside of your respective countries in the EU. I'm saying talking about the EU that are lobbying for their products, including beef, including poultry, including eggs, including milk, including all of that. And they are following a golden standard that is being used by other countries in the world, including China. Even China is using some of the standards that the EU created. And you want to know why? Because they are good. But carrying on. And an idiot tells you this: I want to sell you my dirty poultry that I produce however I want, and you are going to buy it. What would you tell them? I know what I would tell them. I would grab that chlorinated chicken and smack him and bitch slap him around with it and tell him to go eat it himself. And I won't eat it, you know, eat only if I'm starving. God forgive me. I won't, I won't buy any American products, and I am one person. There are millions of us in the EU, and millions of us are simply say that if this If this maniac wants to sell me contaminated chicken and beef, I am going to buy something that is produced in that country or from a company from that country. For again, I will say this again, for a country that claims to be the best businessman of the world, you are pretty naive and pretty incompetent. No. Uh, I would advise you to please go to the Irish Times, give them a view. They have interesting pieces. I, as I said, I fact checked more than one place, but this is one of those places that you can also add to your list and I don't know, fact check things. Okay, fact check me too, please. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next one. Bye.